Hello and welcome back to the True Crime Guys podcast. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Michael.
Whoa, how's everybody doing in this crazy world right now?
It's crazy times, man. There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
People's minds are going crazy. People are afraid for their lives. It's a lot of stuff is sparked up. I feel like it's stuff that's always been there, and it's long overdue. You know what I mean? It's long overdue to be fixed. But people also have to realize it's not going to get fixed in a week, just like it didn't get fixed, you know, the first few times it's happened or hundreds of times it's happened. It's a slow process, I think, but it's a brutal one to go through.
Yeah, I think most of us are of the same mindset out there, but the media chooses to portray the bad because that's what gets clicks, the looting.
Oh, no doubt.
The police brutality, both sides, the small percentages of both sides of this thing that's going on is what you see on CNN, Fox News, all this stuff. And it's sad because also on social media, some of the good that we see, some of the beautiful stories of cops putting down their shields and marching with people, and some of the people that are in the march that are defending good police officers it just really saddens me when I see people doing what this is supposed to be about is, you know, like peace. And what you see from a lot of times is all cops are bastards, or, you know, these marchers are looting. And it's just like, there's bad people in both sides. There's a small percentage of bad people that are police officers who are racist. There's an element of systemic racism in a lot of police officers, a lot of police stations across the country. It's undeniable, and that needs to change. And that's what this is supposed to be about, is a peaceful march for awareness to change, you know, from a systemic level, and get the bad police officers out of there and get justice for those like George Floyd, that despicable police officer who held him down for 10 minutes with his knee on his neck. That is never how police work is supposed to be done. You know, it's just, it was horrible to watch, and I understand the outrage behind it. But we have to keep in mind the big picture is that most people in groups are good. Like, you can't just look at one group and just say you're all bad. You're all, you know, all cops are bastards. Because
all that does is fuel the fire on the other side, and it also forces people to pick a side, which is exactly what don't want to happen.
But what the media wants.
That's what the media wants. Absolutely. But you know what you should do? If you look at your friends, like when I go through my personal Snapchat feed of people that I follow and people that went to protest and things like that, overall their stories were really good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're sharing their experience there, and they met new friends, they met new people, they met people that they didn't think they had anything in common with, and then they showed, you know, police officers hugging protesters and back and forth. And this is like in Charlotte, you know? I mean, we had our bad stuff happen in Charlotte too. But I know there's bad stuff that's happened in every big city, but there's a lot of good too. There is. It's just the bad stuff is a lot easier for the media to cover. You know what I mean? At the epicenter of where all this happens. But if you watch individual Snapchats and Instagram stories on these protests and stuff, you'll see that there's a lot of good stuff going on out here. There really is. Like you said, Lauren, the majority of us are on the same page. It's just like it is in every part of life. It's always those few people that ruin it for everybody.
Yeah.
The
sad thing is, the sad fact right now of our country, and I think really a lot more, like the world in general, is the money rules all. Advertising is running this country, and they are basically, our news and our media outlets are beholden to advertising money, and they need the most clicks. They need the most entertainment, and that's what the fuck news is anymore, is entertainment. Yeah. And that's why all we see is bad, because that's going to get the most clicks. People are going to be outraged. You know, the Republicans and the people on the right are going to be outraged, and they want to see buildings burning and the protesters doing it because that's what they believe they are, and that's what the media has led them to believe they are.
Yep.
You know, don't forget, the other side, the other side, CNN's going to post videos of police being overly forceful with the protesters and going at them with rubber bullets and this and that, because that's what the fuck they want to believe.
Right.
And it's all about advertising dollars in the end. That's what it's about.
That's right. It's about their group, their demographic that watches their channel. They're feeding to that demographic.
Yep.
That's what they're doing. I mean, like you said, it's through their filter, it's through their lens, and these news videos and these clips, they're just that. They're just clips. You never see the full video. You never see the full conversation. You never see any of that stuff.
No, it gets me shaking, just so frustrated because of what's going on. It's tearing us apart. The media. It really
on top
is.
of a pandemic, which apparently everyone seems to have forgotten about. Now it just seems like the world's back open. People are going back to work today. It's just like, oh, it's okay.
Not to make a joke of it.
COVID's gone.
To make a joke of it, because we've spoken our piece, but there was a funny, it was kind of a meme, I guess, that someone posted. It said, how's coronavirus going to blow a 28-3 lead against racism? Like, remember the Falcons blowing that 28-3 lead? All that's been in the news for the last 3 months has been the pandemic, and in one day, pretty much the last week, no one's mentioned coronavirus, except for in the light that we're doing. Like, how is no one talking about it anymore? It's gone.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's gone all of a sudden, but it's definitely not. It's definitely not. It's this kind of scares me how open it is. Like I've spoke on previous shows about how the lockdown wasn't really taken serious here, at least here where I live in North Carolina. In my opinion, it wasn't very serious. Most of the people that you went out and seen were not wearing masks. Most people were not social distancing. People were still shaking hands and such. And then now, I mean, it's like a free for all. The flea markets are back open. I actually went, masked up, of course. But I went to the flea market to check it out because, it's just a normal hub. It was part of my normal thing that I used to do. And it was packed. I mean, people everywhere, vendors at every table, just crowds of people walking down thin corridors of, tables and stuff outside, picking through stuff. It's just, it's almost back to normal here. I mean, you still have a few people wearing masks and stuff like that, but for the most part, it just seems like it's almost back to normal, and I just think I think it's too soon for that.
Yeah.
But people have bigger fish to fry now with all this going on.
You know how many end of the world movies there's been, and it's usually one facet that takes us out. It's one virus, but maybe we never really considered that multiple things happening at once could be the end. Like social unrest and marching and racial riots and all that stuff in conjunction with a deadly virus is what might be able to take us out as a country or as a world, as all countries really. But in America, we might be first just because these things seem to happen here first and everyone else watches. The rest of the world's looking down on us right now.
Well, there's a bright take on it.
Right.
Oh, shit.
Fuck.
Yeah. Hopefully that's not the case, man. We'll get through this like we've gotten through a lot of the other stuff. Not that it's been resolved,
right.
But I feel like it's progress made. It has to be progress made. And I think the number one thing we can do, especially as parents, is
raise our kids right.
Raise your kids right.
Yeah.
Raise your kids without prejudice. Raise your kids knowing to treat people with respect, that no one is better than another, or no race is not allowed in this house.
And you know what? It's not hard to do because kids inherently are like that. Kids inherently want to love everything.
Yes, they do. They do. They absolutely do.
Kids are idealistic. They see the good in most things, in all people and of all different races and colors and everything. So just keep filling into that, instead of teaching them otherwise. So
that is the way. That's the best way to defeat racism. That's the best way.
Well, yeah, because a lot of these old people, I think we talked about a little bit before the show, you're just never going to change them.
Just because of what they lived through, the things that they went through, the people that they met, their experiences. It's just a tough. I don't want to say it's a waste of time, and I'm not saying you can't learn things at an older age. I'm just saying the best way to fight this is to never install these prejudices from the very beginning.
Yeah,
that's how racism dies, in my opinion. Is it ever going to truly die? Probably not, because people are stupid and people are prideful and insecure and arrogant
and flawed. And flawed, mainly.
And flawed.
We're all just flawed as human beings.
We're all just flawed. Yes, we are.
Yeah.
But I think
if you think you're perfect, you're wrong.
That's the best way. Yeah.
If you think you have it all figured out, you're wrong.
No doubt.
So,
no doubt.
And here we are, a couple of schmucks trying to do a podcast, and that's enough 10 talk about this. Let's get into our case this week. It's already going to be a long episode. Should be a good one. And let's dive into it, huh?
All right, let's do it, man. Hey guys, real quick before we get into this intro, I wanted to give a little background. I was racking my brain trying to find the perfect song for this intro, either to cover or maybe to write myself, and I realized that I'd already written it. Well, not me independently, me and also Michelle McNamara, who I was inspired by through her book, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, and also mainly the poem that she wrote at the end. I used some of the lyrics from that for this song, which I did in the Golden State Killer Patreon exclusive. So Patreon members, don't be upset. I'm just letting them hear this song, and I actually remixed it a little bit. And there's also a clip at the beginning from Timothy Bass talking about what a great person he is, and also talking about how he did not try to blame this murder on his father, his deceased father, which is just heart-wrenching to me. And then in the chorus of the song, in the middle of the song, you'll hear a clip from his ex-wife who testified in court and actually told the story of how he did try to blame this on his father. But yeah, I hope you guys will enjoy this. It's a little sneak into the Patreon music for you freeloaders. All right, guys, thanks for listening. See you on the other side.
I would first like to say that I'm 100% innocent of this crime. Furthermore, I don't believe I received a fair trial. In saying that, though, a better man in me says I should say very little today and give this day to the staff family. Sir, I would like to address one thing. I love my father. He was my best friend. We did everything together. For my ex-wife, under oath, to get on that stand and say I tried to blame this on him, that is hard to take. I have never been arrested before. I've never been unemployed. I don't do drugs. I don't drink. I've been married for I was married for almost 30 years. I raised 3 great children, 2 of them on the autism spectrum. I've tried to be respectful and kind in my year and a half that I've been here. It is very hard to do when you're being accused of something like this. I will continue to be this way. This is just the way I am. I wish no ill will towards anyone here, not even today. But I am having a hard time with this.
Open the door, show us your face, walk into the light.
I'm having a hard time with this.
Take off that mask, let's see what you look like. Open the door, show us your face, walk into the light. Put your hands up, 'cause you're the victim tonight. And you'll be silent forever, and we'll be gone in the door, gone in the door. And now we know who you are. You'll be silent forever, we'll be gone in the door, gone in the door. We know the monster you are.
What happened at the time when you went with your husband and you contacted Sandy Bass?
He asked her, can we say Dad did it?
And what was he referring to?
The Mandy Stavik murder.
Okay. And what was the response of Sandra Bass? What did she do anything physically? Did she?
Yeah, she put her hands over her face and like this and paused for a minute and then said no.
And as far as the defendant's father, Dad, was he alive at that time?
No.
Had he been deceased for a period of time?
Yes.
You'll be silent forever, and we'll be gone in the door, gone in the door. And now we know who you are. silent forever. We'll be gone in the dark, gone in the dark. We know the monster you are. Open the door, show us your face. Walk into the light. Take off that mask. Let's see what you look like. Open the door, show us your face. Walk into the light. Put your hands up, 'cause you're the victim tonight.
All right, our case this week goes back to the 80s again, 1989.
Back to the 80s.
Yeah, this case has got a little bit of everything. You got some DNA saving the day.
Uh-huh.
You got a 30-year search for a killer.
Dude, heads up on the DNA collection at this case, though, in the early stages.
For real. This detective, very lucky that this town, this very small county up in Washington, had such a badass detective who was, spending time in Quantico and was at the cutting edge of DNA, and he really had some forethought,
right,
and could see where things were heading, and then held on to the DNA, and that's what ended up getting a guy caught 30 years later.
Especially for such a small town, you would think, they described this town as a town where people didn't lock their doors. They left their keys in the ignition. It's like, why would you take the extra time to go and learn about this new DNA discovery and like all this stuff? It's like, at the most, we're like, getting wolves out of people's yards. I don't understand why we need to get DNA and stuff, but it was heads up. It was progressive thinking, nonetheless.
Yes.
This detective.
Yes. Some detectives, they pride themselves in being as good at their job as they can, just like a lot of every other person out there.
Right.
Want to be as good as they can at their job and study what's coming up and want to be ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
And that's what he was doing. And it paid off. And
no doubt.
Got a guy caught finally that should have been behind bars for a lot longer.
Yep.
But the case that we're doing is Mandy Stavik, and the documentary that we used was ABC's 2020 special on Mandy Stavik's disappearance and on her murder. It's called 30 Years Searching. You can find it on YouTube or on ABC's website. Well, I'll say you can find like the first 5 parts on YouTube.
Yeah, that was so annoying.
It seems like ABC does this every time where they'll give you just enough of a crack hit where you're like, oh, I need more, and then it's like, okay.
Well, they'll tell you everything.
Go to our website.
Yeah, and then hint to what's about to happen, and then they're like, to hear part 6, go to our website. I'm like, I don't have your fucking app on my Xbox. Thanks a lot. Now I got to go on my freaking phone, watch it on this tiny screen.
Yeah, and then you get to the ABC website, and they make you watch 6 ads back to back to back to back before you can
just watch the end. You just need to watch the end, but you got to watch all those ads because it's all the ads you missed. Through the other 40 minutes of the episode. Yeah, that's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
ABC.
But that being said, it was still worth it because it was a really good special on this case. Yes. Really, really well done. Interviewed a lot of the people from it, mainly being Mandy's mother, Mary, who was tough lady, man.
Hell yeah, she was.
I think still living in her 90s right now.
She is a tough woman. What she's been
through. A lot of the detectives thought that she would never, that she wouldn't be around. Sadly, they realized that the case had gone cold, and they still were after the killer. And they were like, sadly, like Mandy's mother, Mary, will probably never know who the killer is, but were they wrong? 30 years later, she's still there.
She's like, I'm going to stay alive just for that.
She actually got
tough
the news.
Alaskan woman, bro.
She got the news delivered as to who her daughter's killer was on her 81st birthday, coincidentally.
Still going strong,
pretty crazy.
Too.
Yeah. So let's start at the beginning, though. Mandy Stavik was born on April 16th, 1971. She shares a birthday with Martin Lawrence and Bill Belichick, a couple of greats at what they do.
Absolutely.
Martin Lawrence, a great comedian, had some great sitcoms back in the 90s.
Dude, a legend, really.
Yeah.
In comedy in general.
Some great comedy films as well.
Yes.
I don't know. It's probably one of his lower end. Maybe it's kind of silly to even mention, but I loved Blue Streak.
Dude,
The
me
stupid
too.
cop
Holy
movie,
shit, I was about to bring that up. Dude, that's underrated. Blue Streak is
a good one.
Yes, Blue Streak is underrated. I was telling my wife about that the other day because we were talking about watching the Bad Boys series back to back. And I was like,
Yeah.
you know what we need to watch? I was like, we need to watch Blue Streak. And she was like, what?
Yeah.
She's like, what is that? I'm like, what do you mean, what is that? I was like, it's like the best Martin Lawrence. No, but it is really good though. Like I always
There's just
love
something
that
about
movie.
it. You know, it's not a great movie. You know,
But it's
like
funny,
the critics
though.
probably tore it apart. But
Yeah.
it's silly and it makes you laugh. And
Absolutely.
it's kind of like a lot of Adam Sandler movies where it's like may not be critically acclaimed. But
Right.
speaking of Adam Sandler, I watched Uncut Gems. I don't know if you've seen that yet on Netflix. It's a serious film he made
Okay.
where he is a top end jewelry dealer to like celebrities and athletes and stuff, but he's also got a serious gambling addiction.
Okay.
And he gets himself into a bunch of pickles, and it's just really tense the whole time. Like, how is he going to get out of this? He's going to get killed, and it's just really good.
Okay.
So
So it's a drama. It's not a
Yes.
Okay.
yes, and it's on Netflix, and I highly recommend it. It's one of the best Adam Sandler movies in a while.
And what was it called again?
Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems. Okay.
Yep.
I'll check it out.
But yeah, so she shared a birthday with Martin Lawrence and the great Bill Belichick. I say great because of what he's done as a coach, you know, all the different championships he's won and taken his team to so many Super Bowls, whether they won or lost.
Yeah.
That being said, seems like kind of a hard ass, not a fun guy to be around.
Well, no.
Makes football not fun, and I think that's why Gronk went to play down in Tampa with Tom Brady. Didn't get away from the no fun Patriots.
Yeah, exactly.
Just all about winning all the time.
And they're in a rebuild stage too, so who knows what they're going to be like this
We'll
year.
see, because you say that, but the Patriots are always a problem. Well, I don't know.
Oh, they
we'll
are.
see.
He'll figure
It'll
out
be
how to
interesting
use the
see what
tools he
happens without
has.
Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back to Mandy. She spent her early childhood days in Palmer, Alaska. As we said, she was born in 1971, so she grew up through the 70s and 80s. And up until she was in 7th grade, she lived in Alaska, which Palmer is basically a part of Anchorage. So really beautiful place to be growing up.
yeah.
Probably spent a lot of time spent outdoors. She had several siblings, and that's part of the amazing thing about her mother, Mary, is some of the just adversity she's been through and the horrible things that she's had to live through that no parent should ever have to experience. She experienced multiple times.
Right.
That being said, Mary, Mandy's mother, divorced Mandy's dad, Glenn Stavik, in 1974 when Mandy was 3. Both of Mandy's parents would remarry not long after their divorce, and also, and this gets to what we were kind of alluding to, not long after the Stavik's divorce in 1975, Mandy's older brother, Mary's son, her oldest son, Brent, was shot to death while on a hunting trip in Alaska when he was 17 years old. Very weird circumstances.
Yes.
Apparently, he had been given permission to hunt on an army base.
Yeah, it
right?
was a military base of some sort.
Military base.
Yeah.
Supposedly, he'd been given permission to hunt there, and then one day he's out hunting and he doesn't come home, and he ends up being. Mary is contacted, I think, by the base when they found his body with 22 caliber rounds in his back and in his head. He had been just brutally murdered by someone and left out there. And as far as the circumstances, they never found any clues or reason for the murder. No murder. No one was ever taken into custody, and it was just kind of forgotten about. And Mary ended up saying, like, I thought that I had been through the worst thing that any human should ever have to go through, and that was my thing that I had to deal with, and that I should be free and clear essentially now for the rest of life. But sadly, that's not how it
Right.
works. Some people continually get really bad luck and have traumatic things happen to them and
Especially,
tragedies. And
you know what's also odd about these two tragedies? You know, the one with her son, and obviously the one about Mandy, which we were alluding to. But is the small towns and the quiet places they chose to live,
Yeah.
the rural places, the places where, like we spoke about earlier, you seem like you're out of the way. You seem like you're kind of out of that. Not that any place, you know, is completely out of the way of crime or tragedy, but it just doesn't typically happen in these areas, especially not to this extent. You know, a murder. It just I don't know,
Yeah,
man.
to live in Alaska and then
Right.
in rural Washington off of a highway in a tiny town with like
Yeah,
10 homes
like
and have both of
almost
your kids
Canada.
murdered just seems like so statistically impossible that
Yes.
it's almost like,
right?
man, what did Mary do to deserve this,
Yeah, and most likely nothing. I mean, I don't necessarily believe in karma. I mean, I think if you put yourself in bad situations or you burn a lot of bridges, I think, yeah, bad things are going to happen to you because you have people gunning for you. But
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be very hesitant to say that she deserved this in any way or any parent deserved this, Seemed like her
Right.
kids were very happy and healthy and
Well,
successful.
she even said herself, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. It's
Right.
like you just never wish a child's death to a parent, no matter who the parent is and how, much you dislike them or whatever they're about. It's just
Yeah,
the worst thing that can happen to a person.
no doubt, man.
So in 1983, when Mandy was in the 7th grade, her mother, Mary, fell in love with Whatcom County, Washington, after her best friend moved there. Not the biggest leap. It sounds crazy going from Alaska, it's back to the States. But, I mean, as far as making the leap back to the States, this is about as close as you could go. Because Whatcom County is like far northwest Washington, which Washington's already far northwest in America. And so it was like basically right below Vancouver.
Right.
Is where she ends up moving her family to. Soon after the family relocated there, this consisted of Mary, her then husband, so she had remarried after her initial divorce with Mandy's father. So it's Mary, her new husband, it's Mandy, and her sister Molly, and her younger brother Lee. So the 3 kids. I believe Mandy was the middle, right? Because Molly was her older sister.
Yeah.
And then Lee was her younger brother.
Right.
They ended up getting a house on Strand Road, later renamed Clipper Road in Clipper, about 4 miles north of Acme, which is a very small. This basically, I don't even know if you could quantify it as a town. This is like a little couple streets off of a highway, Highway 9 in Whatcom County.
Yeah.
It's really like 10 to 15 homes, a couple of streets, not even necessarily a real town. But very close-knit community of people. All the neighbors knew each other.
You know what this town reminded me of? It reminded me of a couple different cases, but one, the Ken Rex McElroy case. You know how small that town was? And I think that was in Missouri, right?
Yeah.
I think it
I
was in
have no
Missouri.
idea, but yeah, somewhere in middle America.
Yeah, it reminded me of that town, and then it also reminded me of Ed Gein's town. And then I thought,
Oh,
man,
yeah,
I guess bad
up in
shit does
Wisconsin.
happen in small towns.
Yeah. Sometimes you get one weirdo.
That's right. That's all
and
it
that's
takes.
the case with this one.
Yep, no doubt.
Yeah, so their home would end up being on a dead end street. The Stavik's home was on Strand Road at the end of it, and the home was beautiful, tucked away in woods, and just as scenic and gorgeous as you can imagine.
It is gorgeous property up there. Just so damn cold.
Right. Well, I mean, they came from Alaska, so this is
Oh,
not
yeah,
gonna be a
I
problem
know.
for them living in Washington.
There was probably like Florida for them. They're like, oh my god.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. It's all about perspective.
Mary was known to be out chopping wood in her 70s, so she could handle
Oh hell yeah.
the elements,
She
no
was
problem.
tough, boy.
Yeah. So approximately 15 families lived in the area at the time. Mandy quickly became integrated with her new schools and was known as the All-American Girl. In a small town, she stuck out. She was young, beautiful, and took on every challenge. At Mount Baker High School, she was playing flute, clarinet, saxophone. She also played varsity softball, basketball, ran track, and was a star student who made the honor roll.
Well, I mean, you got 15 families. You kind of need all the kids you got for everything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to demean it or anything, but if she went to like a 3 or 4A school in like Texas, I don't think she's playing all these things.
Oh, right.
You know what
She
I'm
would
saying?
make the cut for all the different things.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not trying to downplay it or anything. I'm just trying to give perspective. This was a very small town.
Yeah.
So somebody who took part in all these things pretty much was known by everyone. I mean, I don't
Any young decent athlete that happens to live in that small area is probably going to be recruited by every coach of every
exactly
sport and musical thing and play and everything else. But she was the shining star of the small area, is what it seemed like.
Right.
You know, she was like everyone's daughter. Everyone was like, she was like the poster child in the area. She played sports anywhere she was all the time. There was no sport she didn't play. She'd even jump on a horse and ride bareback. And her mother told a story about how she was like, you can't go out for track and for volleyball at the same time. I guess they ran concurrently, and they ran together. And she was just like, you want to bet? And her mother was like, you never bet with Mandy, you'd always lose. And of course, she did manage to run track, play volleyball, as well as keep up with all of her studies and everything else,
Right.
and run 5 miles every night down Strand Road, which is a big part of this story.
Yeah, it is.
Her mother said she was very everything. I don't know that there are words to describe her. As a freshman, Mandy met a sophomore named Rick Zender, who became her sweetheart. They ended up dating all through high school, and even after she went off to college, they continued to date. So Rick Zender also was interviewed during this special, the 2020 special.
Yeah, it seems like Mandy made quite an impact on him, even 30 years later,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah, he never forgot her.
Yeah. One that
Still
one
has
that got away.
nightmares about what happened with her.
No doubt. I bet he does.
In Acme, Mandy had a favorite running route that took her from her home on Strand Road all the way up Strand Road to the Nooksack River and back. Her mother said that Mandy made her get in the car and drive the route with her so she knew the exact length of the route, which was just shy of 5 miles. Through her teen years, Mandy would run the route religiously. Just about every night she would run this 5-mile run. Pretty amazing considering also everything else she was doing. Running track, playing volleyball, basketball, playing the clarinet, getting straight A's.
Well,
Just
she needed that
pretty
kind of
incredible.
stamina to be able to do all that.
Yeah,
She needed it.
no doubt. Just a very diligent, hardworking young woman. And you don't see that a lot of times with young people.
Right.
That just taking it upon themselves. A lot of kids, they do all these things because they feel like they have to, or their parents are forcing them to do it or whatever. She's not only doing it all on her own accord, but she's also getting extra credit running 5 miles at night on top of all of it else.
Right.
Just for sure was going to be a very successful person. There's no doubt about it.
No doubt.
Then 18-year-old Mandy, after graduating high school, went off to college at Central Washington University in 1989. She intended to become a commercial pilot. Pretty interesting.
Yeah. She could do it. I mean,
Yeah. It's like, forget
No-
being a stewardess. I'm going to be the pilot
yeah,
of this
no
big
doubt in
plane.
my mind,
You know?
she could have been a pilot.
Yeah. Mandy became fast friends with her Japanese roommate, Yoko. As the pair were trying to learn each other's native languages in college, Mandy decided to come home for Thanksgiving break in 1989 and actually brought Yoko with her back home. Tells you also what a good person she is. She gets this Japanese roommate and just looks at it as an opportunity to learn a new language and make a new friend, and brings the girl back to her home with her because, of course, she's Japanese and she's away from her homeland, and it just shows you what a good person she was as well.
Right.
The two walked Mandy's favorite running route the day after Thanksgiving on November 24th, 1989. And Mandy then went for her normal run later in that day. So she not only walked the 5-mile route in the morning, but she went back to run it again
Right.
that night. So even when she comes home on break from college, she's still, running this route every night.
Oh, yeah. She probably had a route she ran at college. She had to have. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
something
for
you got to
sure.
keep up, man. That type of running, that type of stamina, you got to keep that shit
I
up.
hate long distance running, dude.
Oh, I know. I'm more of a
I view
sprints.
myself as like an athlete, and I like doing sprints and stuff, but long distance running has never been my thing. I hate it.
I do too.
It's just, for one, it's boring, and then also it is like a different level of difficult, where it's just like that. It's more of like a test of your wills, where you're just like everything's hurting and you just got to keep going.
Yep.
But this is a maddening part of the story, and it just must make Mary it must eat at her forever, because it was customary for Mandy's mother, Mary, to ride alongside Mandy on her bike during her run. But on this occasion, Mary's sister and Mandy's aunt was there for the holiday, Thanksgiving. So when Mandy went out on her run that evening, Mary decided to stay home. It was like the only time she ever stayed home. She always rode her bike. And Mandy also always had her German Shepard, Kyra, an older German Shepard. Kind of reminded me of your dog.
Yeah, it did. I saw her in the documentary.
Yeah. So Kyra, the German Shepherd, actually did go with Mandy on her run this evening. But it was just her and the German Shepherd, as well as her Walkman, because it was the 80s. So she was listening to music in her Walkman on this run
Right.
with her dog Kyra. She was seen by her brother and as well as another person in town. On her way back, she had made it to the Nooksack River at the end of Strand Road and was seen by her younger brother Lee on her way back down Strand Road, not far from the house. Her younger brother Lee was at the Andersons, a neighbor, visiting with a friend at the time when he saw her run by. Mandy, however, never made it home that evening. Her mother became quickly worried when she wasn't back when she was supposed to be back, and she also began to full-on panic when Kyra, the German Shepherd, returned home without her.
Yeah, because them dogs don't do that, man.
Yeah,
Them dogs
that
are loyal.
must
They're
have been
not, yeah, they're not going to
It
leave
must have
you
been a
out there.
chilling moment seeing that dog come jogging up with its leash and no Mandy. It's been like something is definitely wrong.
Yes. And it's also a red flag as to why that dog didn't fight or have some sort of blood or flesh on its teeth or on its muzzle, because I mean, they're protective. So that would mean that the dog may have been familiar with someone. You know
Police later speculated that the dog may have been kicked or pushed, and the dog was a little older too.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the dog was assaulted as well.
Maybe.
Because the dog also was acting strange when it got home. When the police tried to take the dog out, because they ended up hiring a tracker. The police hire like an old school, like Native American style tracker, a person who could read sign in brush and stuff like that.
Right.
And the guy found like a section where he believed that Mandy had gone into the woods, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But they wanted to take the dog, Kyra, over to that spot and see where Kyra leads them from there. Kyra didn't even want to leave the house. Kyra was just like traumatized from whatever had happened. So it's believed by police that the dog was maybe kicked or something happened to it.
Well, the dog could have also just been intimidated by all the officers and strangers as well.
That's true.
Because like my dog, he'll do anything I say, but he's not going to listen to someone else. Like you would think he's the most disobedient dog in the world, because he's not going to listen to you. He's going to be looking at me the whole time being like, do I got to listen to this fool? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like that's just how they are. They're very loyal. They latch on to people.
Yeah. So almost immediately, the town was on alert and searching all along Mandy's jogging route. That's one thing you got to love about a small town. We saw it with the West Memphis 3 as well. Is like you don't have to wait for the police to get to that 48-hour period where they deem a person a missing person. Like if you're in a major city, that's what's going to happen. It's like you're going to report someone didn't come home, and a lot of times the major police stations and metropolitan areas, they're going to be like, well, they could have ran away, give it 48 hours, and then call us back, whatever.
Right, especially since Mandy was an adult.
In a small town, everyone knows Mandy. They know her nature. They know that she wouldn't not come home. They know that she's not going to run away. And so the whole town immediately band together, and they were all searching everywhere for her within an hour of her not coming home. Pretty much the whole town was immediately on alert and searching all along Mandy's jogging route. And by the next morning, Mandy's disappearance was the biggest story in Northwest Washington. Police immediately, of course, questioned the boyfriend, Rick Sender, who was the closest person to him. Usually you go to the husband, the boyfriend, whatever, first as a suspect. However, he was very forthcoming. He had an alibi, and the search continued when they quickly ruled him out. He was very upset as well. Like you could tell he had genuine concern for where Mandy was, just like the mother did and everyone else.
No doubt, man. He knew he found a keeper.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt.
Like we talked about before, if she was that disciplined at this young of an age and that successful and that driven, I mean,
and truly very pretty as well.
Yes,
she really was.
Absolutely, very pretty, and she seemed very kind and thoughtful. You know, something that just occurred to me. You know, when she brought her friend Yoko home, instead of taking her out there and running and probably like practically, I don't know if Yoko was in good shape or not, but I mean, I know most people don't run 5 miles a day, but instead of running the 5 miles, she walked it with her. I mean, that right there just shows consideration, shows empathy. It's a small act, but it kind of leads into who she was as a person a little bit more, I think.
Yeah. And then to still go out later and have the diligence to run it as well.
Right.
On top of walking it earlier in the day.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the search was intense. They had helicopters, border control, people on horseback searching trails, because this, as we mentioned, this is just below Canada and Alaska. This is up in a very woodsy, cold area, and this is November. And so they have a lot of different trails and stuff to search. I'm sure there's similar kind of situation to like if someone was lost in where you live, where it's just like woods in your backyard.
Yeah.
You'd need a lot of people to hit the trails on horseback and stuff to really search.
Yep. Four-wheelers, ATVs and stuff now, what they're sending out. But yeah.
And they even thought to hire a man tracker. The tracker came in. He was interviewed in the 2020 piece as well, and talked about his methods as far as bruised leaves and broken twigs and stuff like that, and being able to track where someone had freshly gone through an area.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at it at Red Dead Redemption. I'm pretty good at it. I can track the shit out of a bear. So.
Right.
Listen,
not quite the same skill set.
Oh no. Okay, sorry.
The tracker had found he claimed to have found Mandy and Kyra's tracks going off into the woods where they suddenly disappeared, and his thought was that maybe she was drawn into the woods by someone and then put into a vehicle who then drove off, because it seemed weird to him that the tracks suddenly stopped. He saw the dog tracks and her tracks, her footsteps, which just suddenly stopped, so it would lead you to believe that someone took her off in a vehicle.
Yeah. And that would explain also why the dog couldn't do anything. Because if she was pulled into a vehicle, or maybe even coerced into a vehicle, maybe it was someone she knew, and they said, hey, could you give me directions to such and such, sit in here for a minute or whatever, and then take it and left the dog there on the side of the road. Then the dog would have nothing to do but to walk home,
Exactly. So the search would continue. Then on November 26th, 2 days after Mandy went missing, police found a pair of green sweatpants on a deserted and overgrown side road. The pants matched what Mandy had been wearing on her run. So it seemed to be too much of a coincidence to not be hers. However, her mother disagreed that they were hers. She said that they were dirty and they had holes in them, which they'd spent 2 days in the woods. They'd been through who knows what with Mandy. She's missing and odd circumstances.
And also those woods were riddled with blackberry bushes.
Thorny bushes.
Yes, very thorny bushes. We have a lot of wild blackberries that grow out here, and if you ran through them in sweatpants, your sweatpants would be fucked up. There's no way they're getting through there untorn.
Yeah, so the police thought that there was a good chance they were hers. They sent them off for testing, and that they were actually determined to not be hers. They had semen on them. The semen was tested, and as well as there was just no DNA of Mandy's found on them.
Dude, what are the chances though?
I know, right?
That just
and she ended up. I mean, we'll talk about it, but she ended up being found without her sweatpants. So I still think it's possible they were hers. I don't know.
That just seems so strange to me. A pair of green sweatpants in the same area.
Yeah, and where they were found was a very deserted side road that was just completely covered in old dead leaves and stuff, and no one traveled on, but yet the pants looked like they stuck out. They hadn't been there that long.
Right. I wonder what kind of forensic evidence ruled this out. I mean, in 1989, what were they doing to rule these out? I don't know.
Yeah. Then on day 3 of the search, you have to think how, just mad her mother must be going at this point. It's 3 days later after Thanksgiving, her daughter's still gone.
Right.
She said herself that she was being outwardly positive to friends and family, but she's like, I knew my daughter was dead.
Because she knew her daughter, and she knew her daughter would have contacted her or returned home if she was capable of it. She had no reason to leave.
And also, there's been a lot of people who have said that when someone very, very close to you dies, even if you have no idea that they had died and you were nowhere near it, you get this odd feeling as though something just happened. I've heard a lot of people say that.
Yeah, like
she said
emptiness.
that she had that feeling, and she talked to other mothers who have suffered similar situations, and they said they had the same feeling, that they just knew that their daughter was gone. Very odd.
I mean, that
a hole was in them all of a sudden.
That adds a lot of weight to the statements from mothers who assume that that they believe their child is still alive. Like with Maureen Gosh, she believed that, and then, I believe that Johnny did visit her.
Is still, yeah, I think Johnny's still alive.
Yeah, I think he is too.
On day 3 of the search, November 27th, some members of a neighboring fire district were checking the river in a small boat when they spotted something in the water that turned out to be Mandy's body. She was face down. She was nude aside from her running shoes and socks, and she was caught up on some debris, like a big branch, in the river on a bend in the Nooksack River about 5 miles from her home. Due to the cold temperatures of the river, Mandy's body was preserved, and it looked like you could shake her and wake her up, according to one of the investigators. The only obvious sign of trauma was some scratches on her thighs that could have come from running through those thorny bushes we had mentioned, the blackberry bushes.
Right.
Other than that, she looked pristine. She looked, like we said, like you could shake her and wake her up.
Right. But this was
which
a
really
cold
traumatized these
Washington
detectives. Yeah, they really traumatized these detectives because they were older men and they had daughters her age, and they looked at her like she was their daughter.
Right.
And the one detective said that the image is just etched in his brain of her pristine body just being lifeless like that. Upon conclusion of Mandy's autopsy the next day, cause of death was determined to be drowning, which initially confused everyone because Mandy was a strong swimmer. The river wasn't very deep, and why the hell would she be in the river in the first place, and why was she nude? You know. However, upon further inspection of the autopsy report, the report told the story in which Mandy was clearly raped and murdered. Her body showed signs of sexual assault. There was semen found inside her body, under her hair as well. In her scalp was a hematoma from an apparent blow to the head, which was enough to render her unconscious.
Yes,
So
and it
she'd
was
been
bleeding.
apparently struck in the head.
Yeah, I was going to say it was bleeding underneath the scalp, which that
Yeah.
is the most serious type of head injury. If you have no lump and no outward bleeding, that's not good because that blood's going somewhere, and that pressure as well.
Yeah, and so she easily could have been knocked out by this blow to the head. She could have been, it seems as though she was chased through the woods, which is why she had all the scratches. Someone attacked her, ripped her clothes off, was attempting to rape her, and it seems as though she got away, was running through the bushes where she was struck in the head. And eventually she was put in the water where she ended up drowning. She wasn't killed from the blow to the head. She was killed from either being held underwater or placed in the river while she was unconscious, where she ended up drowning.
Right.
Ron Peterson was lead investigator on the case and had actually just returned, as we mentioned, from training at Quantico, where early stages of DNA analysis were taking place.
Good timing.
So yeah, Ron was at the forefront of this whole thing and saw the wave of DNA coming. He had the forethought to create and store the DNA profile from the semen that was found on Mandy's body, which ended up breaking the case later on. But at the time, a $1,000 reward for information leading to the killer was offered, and tips rolled into the police, who followed up on all of them to no avail. Many of them, of the suspects, were ruled out when their DNA was taken and tested and didn't match the profile of the killer's DNA.
Right.
Investigators then even brought to the case. They brought their case of Mandy's murder to the Green River Killer Task Force, because the Green River Killer was the biggest news story at the time, up in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle, not far from where this murder took place of Mandy, up in far northwest.
Right. That would have been my thought, if I was looking through these and just saw that a girl of her age went missing.
Found in a river,
in such
dead.
a weird way, in a river. Yes, dead, sexually assaulted. Yeah, Green River Killer was definitely someone you need to look into.
Yeah. The task force decided that the case didn't fit the bill for the Green River Killer. As we know, he killed mainly sex workers. Mandy, a young girl jogging in this small town.
Yeah, that would have been his mistake for sure.
Yeah,
they would have got his ass.
Some things didn't really add up for them. That being said, I'm sure they didn't say 100% this can't be the Green River Killer, but they said it's unlikely. And that's where eventually the case went cold after 20 years. So 20 years go by, where they get a lead here and there. They follow up on it, and DNA rolls out the suspect. And the years just kind of roll on by. And after 20 years, in 2009, a new Detective Bowie, was assigned to the case. He was the third detective over the prior 2 decades to be assigned the case. And he had a new, fresh idea. That's something that they were hoping for.
Yeah.
The police force, they were hoping that a new detective would come in, and they wanted him to go over the case. What did we miss? What could be tried that we haven't tried?
Although I don't know if it was like a new idea or if he was just like, test everybody.
I think it was pretty cutting edge at the time, actually.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Well, maybe not by 2009, but it would have been for the detectives prior.
Yeah. Okay.
I forget the 2009. Yeah, a lot of stuff had been done with DNA by then.
Yeah.
But Bowie had read a book called The Blooding about a young woman in England named Dawn Ashforth that had been abducted, raped, and killed, much like Mandy. And also like Mandy's case, the killer had left his DNA behind. Investigators in England went door to door, testing men that fit the age group and were near the murder. They tested over 4,000 men before finally catching the killer. And this was one of the first examples of what's called a DNA sweep, where they basically just blanket the area where the murder happened. They hit all of the likely suspects and test their DNA until they find the person. Bowie decided to try this method to find Mandy's killer. And it would be a lot easier because harder because, it is a small town. And it's rural, and people that leave would be hard to track down. But at the same time, you're working with a lot less people than, somewhere like England, where there's so many people crammed together.
And it's also harder because you most likely know a lot of those people, and you're coming to these people being like, "Hey,
Yeah.
Jim, can I get a DNA sample?" And he's like, "Come on, really, me, Ron?
I know it's not you,
Me,
Jim,
Ron?
but
Come on.
just clear your name. Just give me your
Just give me
DNA.
your
Just clear your name.
No, I thought we were friends, Ron. You know,
Right.
It's just
Is this because I won poker last week?
she's,
I'll give you the $20 back.
just open
Damn
your
it.
damn mouth, Jim, and let me get the swab.
Right.
Yeah, I can see how that can
Yeah.
be difficult.
Yeah, so Detective Bowie thought it'd be a good idea to try this DNA sweep method. The method, although effective, can take time, though. Many of the men that lived in the area in 1989, you have to realize 20 years went by, so a lot of them had moved away and had to be tracked down for samples. So they're doing this, but it takes time. So you fast forward 4 years to 2013, after analyzing several DNA samples from residents that did not provide a match, a man named Timothy Bass came to the attention of investigators. And I just love this part of the story,
too,
and how
dude. Sweet
how he
justice.
became known to the investigators was actually from some mothers on a play date at a freaking water park.
Dude, don't underestimate some mothers,
Just gossiping.
bro.
Don't underestimate the gossip ability of a bunch of parents sitting around,
That's right.
talking about things that have happened.
Hey, that's right.
So at the time of the murder, Tim Bass had been living on the same road as the Staviks back in 1989, but had not been contacted by authorities. There were only a few houses between the Staviks' home and the Basses' the Basses' home, and he lived right on Mandy's jogging route. She basically ran right past his house every time.
Right.
Timothy's family knew her family, and he'd attended Mount Baker High School just as she did. His younger brother, Tom Bass, was friends with Mandy Stavik as well. How Tim Bass's name came to police's attention is quite interesting. It was actually a few local mothers getting together for a play date for their kids at a water park that broke the case wide open. And this is how it went down. On a sunny Friday afternoon in June of 2013, Heather Backstrom and Mary Lee Anderson, two mothers who lived near Bellingham, Washington, decided to give their young children a treat and take them to Birch Bay water slides for some splash and play. They were among a group of moms chatting about their families, their lives in their hometown of Acme, a tight-knit rural area half an hour from downtown Bellingham. Randomly, one of the mothers brought up a notorious case from years ago in Acme, the unsolved rape and murder of 18-year-old Mandy Stavik. Heather and Mary Lee had both gone to Mount Baker High School, just as Mandy had, and started chatting as their kids frolicked on the water slides. Backstrom suddenly blurted out, quote, "I know who killed her." Mary Lee, stunned at the statement, then replied, "I do too."
Oh, shit.
Mutually intrigued, the two women told each other stories about their encounters with a local man at the time of Mandy's murder. Mary Lee said a man named Tim Bass, another Mount Baker graduate who was a friend of her husband, stopped by her house one night a couple years after Mandy Stavik's death and knocked on the door. He said he had been out hunting and needed to use the phone. Mary Lee was home with her infant son. Bass dialed the phone, but Mary Lee could hear the beep, beep, beep of the call not
shit.
going through. So he was making a phony call
That's
at her
when you
house.
start sweating, boy, when you can hear that.
Yeah. She suspected Bass was not dialing a work number and had lied about needing to make a call. She says, quote, "So then he walks through the kitchen and back to my bedroom. And then he said that he used to drive by our house and that he had always been in love with me and wanted to make love to me." At that moment, she was seized with fear. Her husband was away, and she was alone with a man who was suddenly seen as a predator. Quote, "I kept telling him no, but he kept trying to convince me to go into the bedroom with him," she said. "Finally, I told him I would call the police, and somehow, I don't even remember exactly how, I got him out of my house." Hearing this story, Heather explained that she, too, had a very uncomfortable experience with the same man, Tim Bass, just months before Mandy Stavik's murder. She had been only 15 at the time, and Bass was 21. It was after a softball game, and they were riding in a truck driven by another younger man named Dan, whom Heather later married. At the time, though, they were just friends. Heather sat between Dan, the driver, and Tim Bass in the front seat. Bass started flirting aggressively with her. She said, quote, "He would talk about my eyes and say that they were beautiful. Then he took out a pen out of the cup holder and would start rubbing it along my knees." Ugh.
Ugh, so creepy.
Heather says that she was very uneasy and just played along, knowing that Dan's presence would prevent Tim from getting any more physical. But the incident always stuck out in her memory. In the small community, she made a point of trying to avoid contact with Bass. The two women for years had thought that if he behaved toward them in this predatory way, it was conceivable that Bass could have done the same thing to other women and maybe even Mandy Stavik. But they had nothing more concrete than their own suspicions and never named him to the police. They said, quote, "I really wasn't ready because we were in a small town, and to accuse someone of something that we didn't know for sure was a little scary," Mary Lee said. But here in the water park, more than two decades later, bolstered by a similar tale from her new acquaintance, Anderson knew it was time to speak up.
That's what we were talking about earlier, about the small town friction that can be created. Like, you can seriously burn bridges just by accusing someone. So people are, you would think people would hold each other accountable, but typically that's not the way it is.
But also by not saying something, you were not deliberately, you were non-deliberately, but you're potentially putting all these people that you know and love so closely, in a close, tight-knit, small community like that, you're putting other people at risk by not saying something as well.
That's true.
But I that being said, I'm not blaming them. I totally understand, why they didn't say anything. But it's just cool that they got together and they both had the same experience, and now they're gonna share this with the police.
Yeah.
Anderson contacted a high school classmate who was a detective in the Whatcom County's sheriff's office and told him of their suspicions about Tim Bass. Timothy Bass was on Whatcom County's list of suspects to be DNA tested for the sweep, just because he fit, the age group. He lived near the area at the time. He was on the list, but the list had over 100 people.
He was way down,
and he wasn't necessarily at the top of it.
Right.
He was just in there to be tested at some point.
Yeah.
But upon looking into Tim Bass, police determined that he had moved out of the area shortly after the murder. There's these stories of him being creepy with women during the time of Mandy's murder, and so they move him right to the top of that list.
No doubt.
Another thing that looks suspicious is in January of 1990, not even 2 months after the murder of Mandy, he'd married Gina Malone and moved to Everson, about 19 miles north of Acme. So he's a young dude in his 20s. A girl on his street gets abducted and murdered, and 2 months later, he quickly gets married and moves away. So that doesn't look good on his part.
No, it does not.
The couple would end up having 3 children, and he became a local delivery driver for the Fran's Bakery outlet, where he worked still in 2013 when the police got wind of him. This dude, he was kind of known in town as a weirdo. Yeah. His younger brother was cool, and he was the weird older brother that kind of was hung to himself in the background. And then we come to find out he was also very creepy with women.
Right.
And so he did fit the bill. His younger brother was actually a friend of Mandy's, but Mandy would never hang out with Tim. She would hang out with Tom.
Yeah. Well, they were. It's
got to suck to have a younger brother way cooler than you,
Yeah, I know, right? But Timothy was 4 years older than her, and at high school age, that's kind of a big gap. You know what I mean? Like, you're not.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, you're not hanging out with seniors when you're in 8th grade. So.
Yeah, but I don't think Tim was hanging out with anybody really.
No, probably
to be fair.
not. Probably not.
Even kids his age, I don't think he was hanging out with.
He seemed, for lack of a better term, very desperate for sexual contact.
Yeah.
So yeah, I doubt he was.
Yeah. Malone, Timothy Bass's wife at the time, later said that he was very controlling, that he would tell her what to do, what to wear, and whom to talk to. Now, she actually covered for him initially, though. She gave him an alibi. She said that she was actually hanging out with him when Mandy was murdered and that he couldn't have done it, but she was pressured, we later find out, by Tim to say that.
Right.
And she was actually afraid of him because he was violent with her, and she was afraid of, if I don't cover for him and then he ends up not being locked up for this, then I have to suffer the repercussions of almost getting him locked up.
Right.
She said that when he'd watch TV shows and movies that pertained to murder, quote, he would always say the murderer was stupid, and didn't cover his tracks very well, and that he wouldn't be stupid enough to get caught.
Yikes.
I mean, he wasn't wrong for a long time. He did get away with it, but his track record and his behavior with others came back to bite him beautifully.
It makes you wonder if he wasn't following the news about the Green River killer and got that idea from him to put her body in the river, because of the moving water. I mean, there's no better way to destroy evidence than moving water.
Right.
I just wonder.
Yeah, and had she not gotten caught up on a branch on the bend of the river, who knows how far that river would have taken her.
Exactly.
When police traveled to Bass's home and asked him about Mandy Stavik, he appeared to be unable to remember her name, which was actually a big red flag.
He's full of shit.
The old, let me see. I guess I remember that girl that was murdered on my street.
Yeah, I don't remember her.
That everyone has talked about for the last 20 years.
Right. I don't remember her out of my high school class of 20. Let me think.
Right. Right, exactly. Detective Bowie said, quote, "That was definitely a big red flag for me, which indicated to me that he was obviously lying. Everybody knew that Mandy Stavik case and that she ran past his house every day. How would you not know it?"
Exactly.
Timothy Bass also said that he could not give the police his DNA because he didn't trust them. So yeah, he's not looking good at this point.
No, he's
Authorities then headed to Timothy's workplace, Fran's Bakery, in hopes of obtaining a DNA sample from inside his delivery truck. They spoke with Kim Wagner. Kim Wagner's pretty awesome. She was in the 2020 special. She plays a huge role in this case.
Yes, she does.
And she just what's not to like about her, because I like her as a boss at Fran's. You know, like she's kind of like the manager at this point. And like she's like, I'm not giving you guys DNA, because she didn't know what it was for. The police were being coy with her.
Right.
They go to her, who was managing the bakery's outlet store at the time, and told her that there was an employee they were investigating. She says, quote, "They came in, they said there's an employee here under investigation for a case that they would like to get route information and maybe collect a cigarette butt in there. At that point, I just shut them down. I was like, yeah, no, this is way above my pay grade." So she's like not having it.
Right.
But maybe had they told her, you know, what this is involving an abduction and murder of a young girl, then she might have given them permission then, but they were being coy. They wouldn't tell her what it was about. These two officers come in and they're like, we want to know this guy's route. We want a cigarette butt from him. And she's like, whoa. Hold on now.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
So she ends up directing the police to the company's human resources department. The corporate office for the bakery, however, needed more from authorities, you know. So like she did the right thing. She directed them. She's like, you know, you guys need a warrant for this. You can't just come in and take my employee's DNA without telling me what it's about, without having a warrant.
Right. And to be fair, Tim had worked there for a long time, so
Yeah,
she probably
he had
knew him
worked there
pretty
for a very
well.
long time.
And if he worked there for a long time, obviously he was a competent employee that was doing his job.
Yeah.
So she had no reason.
There were
to
some weird
suspect.
things that she would later notice that she hadn't really paid attention to before, though.
Yeah, that's true.
And the police soon find out as well. They wanted a subpoena or search warrant, which police didn't have sufficient probable cause to get at the time. So we then lose some more time. You know, fast forward several years later to 2017. During a conversation, and more gossip gets this thing solved, dude. Gossip on two different fronts get this thing solved.
People talk a lot of shit about gossip and stuff, but I mean, it's getting shit done out here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know.
So she told the police basically to fuck off back in 2013, right? Fast forward 4 years later, and Kim is sitting at a bar with some friends and her husband, and the conversation veered into discussing her coworkers. A name came up, delivery driver Tim Bass, and that he had lived on the same street that Mandy Stavik had lived in the year that she was before she was killed. So Mandy is still a topic of conversation at parks, at bars. This is still like the local town mystery from many years ago.
Well, that just goes to show you how little they have going on there.
Yeah. And so Kim's like, wait a second. The guy that the police came to try and get, you know, the route for and the DNA from, he lived on the street of this girl that was murdered back in the day. Mm-hmm. And she said, quote, "This light went off in my head and I thought, is that why police were at my work?"
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. And so she determined, you know what, I'm going to work with them the next time they come in. So they ended up coming in again to Fran's Bakery, this time in hopes of getting Tim's delivery route yet again. This time she was ready. Now, I tend to believe she called them and told them to come back, right? Because it had been 4 years. They'd already been denied. They didn't have enough probable cause to get anything. So why would they just randomly come back 4 years later without it? They still didn't have a search warrant.
Right.
I tend to believe she called them and said, hey, come in and talk to me.
No doubt.
When they came back, she took the detective into her office and asked him whether he was investigating the Mandy Stavik case. Quote, "He just looked at me like a cartoon character, like the eyes were popping out of his head. He just looked at me like, oh my God." And then I said, "Was it Tim Bass?" She then gave Timothy Bass's route because apparently he just kind of gave her like a wink or a nod and was like, yeah, it's Timothy Bass that killed her, we believe. So she then started to work with them. She gave them Timothy Bass's route. You know, he delivered bread and whatnot to grocery stores and stuff. And so they let the police know exactly where he'd be at what time, and they were able to follow him around undercover and kind of keep an eye on his behavior. Police did still not have a subpoena or search warrant, but Wagner decided to act on her own. Bowie said that they also learned that Tim Bass, whose job was to deliver baked goods, wore gloves during his shifts and oddly didn't seem to throw things away at work. Quote, Tim basically took his trash home, Bowie said. He didn't leave any chance that somebody would find something or get a hold of his DNA.
Yeah, that's not strange. I mean, who wants to take
yeah,
their
it's a little
trash
odd.
home? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that's suspicious. But I mean, you wouldn't think nothing of it at first.
No.
You know, you could.
No, maybe he's just a clean person, if you didn't think he was a murderer. Wagner then offered to get authorities a DNA sample from Tim Bass, but they had declined her offer because they could not ask for a civilian to collect evidence. They declined, quote unquote, declined her offer. They were like, we can't ask
We
you
can't
to do
ask
that.
you to.
We can't ask you, but please get that shit.
I mean, it would be great if we had it, but we can't ask you.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So they told her, however, they could accept evidence brought to them, but they couldn't ask for it. Wagner decided to take the matters into her own hands. She says, quote, I 100% volunteered to do it. The reason I wanted to know is that I'm a mom now. If something happened to my daughter, I want someone to help me. And I thought of her mom never having an answer to who did that to her daughter. If I could help find that piece, I wanted to do it. So her motherly instincts were kicking in, and she really felt for Mandy's mother, Mary, who had never had closure all these years, had never known who had done this to her daughter.
Right.
Wagner watched Timothy Bass closely, waiting for her opportunity, and when the bakery got a water cooler, she saw him drink from one of the cooler's plastic cups and throw it away.
I wouldn't doubt if she went and bought the water cooler. She's like, look, guys, a new water cooler in here. Feel free to use it and leave your cups right here.
Put it in her office, and you
got
got to come. The one downside is it's in my office. You got to come in here.
and leave the cups. I want to recycle those.
Right. This is such a movie, dude. This whole case should be a movie.
I know.
It could be
It really-
really well done.
It probably will be.
Yeah, so she says, quote, I looked in the garbage and my heart was like beating out of my chest. So she watches Tim Bass come in, take a drink out of the water cooler thing with the little plastic cup and throw the cup in the trash. She says, my heart was beating out of my chest. I grabbed it and put it in my desk drawer. I was like, oh my God, that just happened. So she's got it. She's got his DNA.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she can't get this to the police quick enough to find out whether he was, in fact, this scumbag murderer or not.
Oh, you know it, bro. She's like, going out for lunch. See you guys later.
Yeah. And even more anxious than her were the investigators, I'm sure, who really believed he was the guy at this point. And when they sent in the cup for testing, they did, in fact, learn. They got a call from the DNA lab, and they learned that it was, in fact, a match. Tim Bass would end up being arrested at Fran's Bakery and taken into Whatcom County Sheriff's Office. And he was just dumbfounded. How the hell did you guys get my DNA? Like you could see it. There's actually, the interview was taped and you could watch it.
Yeah.
And he's just dumbfounded as to, like, I don't remember giving you guys my DNA. How did?
Yeah.
Because he knows that's the only way they can catch him.
Yep.
And they're just kind of coyly sitting there with a smirk on their face, like, don't worry, we got it. And you could tell at a certain point, he's like, I believe they actually have it, because they just seem too confident right now.
Yep.
And that's when his story changes. The detective said, I'm sure in his mind he was thinking, I've gone through all these measures to make sure you guys don't have my DNA. How did this happen? Where did I screw up? And the detective said, I think once he realized we actually did have his DNA, then he switched. That's when Tim Bass told investigators that he and Mandy had been having a secret sexual relationship back in 1989. Yeah, of course.
that
So,
sounds
I mean,
legit.
how could you resist? The creepy older brother of Tim Bass.
Ugh.
He said, quote, I met her, I think, when I was with my dad. We were mountain bike riding up and down the road, and he talked to her. He had a way with people. He just talked to her, and I talked to her. And then after that, I'd mountain bike up and down the road as she'd jog, and then we'd talk and stuff. I think it was in the spring. It wasn't that long of a relationship, because then she went away to college. I want to say Eastern or Central. This story was a way of accounting for how his DNA had been found in Mandy Stavik. Authorities said his father, the only person who could verify these claims, had died, of course. But neither police nor Mandy Stavik's family believed the story. I love this quote from her sister. Quote, there's no way my sister would have been in a physical relationship with Tim Bass, Brighten said. She was way, way, way out of his league, to put it bluntly.
That's obvious. That's obvious to anybody. I mean,
Yeah.
She didn't even have to say that out loud. We all figured that out pretty quickly.
Yeah, and beyond that, no one had ever seen them together. There was no way he could ever prove that he had talked to her. There was no letters when she was off at college. There was nothing to corroborate this.
He's talking about when they hit it off and started talking was in the spring. So why is your DNA still in there in November, dumbass?
Well, she'd come back. I'm guessing he's trying to say that they had hooked up when she came back for Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah, she was just thinking about him while she was away at college. Just couldn't wait to get back.
Yeah. And then coincidentally, she's murdered that same evening, you know.
Whatever, Bass.
Yeah. So Tim would be arrested on December 12th, 2017, and charged with murder in the first degree. Mary Stavik, as we mentioned earlier, learned of the arrest of the murderer who had killed her daughter so many years before on her 81st birthday.
Yeah, she was actually out putting a new roof on her house. I'm telling you, this lady was a go-getter, man. Even in the documentary, she hasn't lost a step. You know what I mean? Yeah, you can tell this is a woman.
She's just laying some concrete for her new outbuilding.
Yeah. She's out there putting a new transmission in her truck.
Right.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Tim maintained his innocence and denied any involvement in Mandy Stavik's rape and murder and kind of made himself out to be a victim. He's fucking pathetic. Like when you see the footage of him in court, like what did he say? Quote, I felt like I was holding, or no, that was someone else. Quote, I would first like to say that I am 100% innocent of this crime. I wish no ill will towards anyone here, not even today, but I'm having a hard time with this. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Piece of shit. They finally got you. You were wrong about how you would be smart enough to not get caught. You got caught, and and you're just lucky that you got so many years free before you were caught.
Yep. Now other assholes are sitting on their couch, crumbs on their stomachs, going, I wouldn't have been that dumb to get caught. Fucking throw my cup in the water cooler basket.
Yeah, right. And on May 24th, 2019, the jury convicted Timothy Bass of murder in the first degree. That's when Rick Sender, the former boyfriend and high school sweetheart of Mandy, said, quote, I felt like I was holding my breath for 30 years. I can't even describe the relief when he was found guilty. That sent Rick in a different path for life. I think they would have ended up marrying and having children. I really think it
seemed like it.
He actually, even after she went off to college, he was the one who had gone to her college and driven her back for the holidays back to their small town.
Yeah.
So
they were making it work even on that in that long distance. Yeah.
Yep. The judge ended up giving Tim Bass the maximum sentence of 320 months in prison, where he sits today. And that is our case of the Mandy Stavik murder of 1989 that went unsolved for almost 30 years before DNA and a lot of gossip got him caught.
That's awesome, dude. I'm glad.
Beautiful
justice served.
Yep.
You know, sometimes it's even sweeter when when they're free for a little while. It's like they get that taste of freedom, like they almost can relax, but then they get busted.
It's very much like it reminds me of what's the Bay Area one, the Golden State Killer.
Oh yeah, the Golden State Killer.
That scumbag, how DNA got him caught. Like was it like 30 years later as well?
Yep.
And it was the whole line of like, someday you'll hear us come knocking. You know, and there's so many guys out there right now that this is going to still happen to, thanks to all the advancements in DNA, that they did some crime back in the 90s or 80s.
Yep.
And someday they're going to get a knock at their door, and they must be living now, looking over their shoulder, knowing that it's just a matter of time before they're caught.
And dude, I think it's even more so now because, we were talking about the power of gossip, and I feel like more and more people are talking about true crime nowadays. I know we're kind of in that vein as far as our social media.
More and more podcasts are diving into these cases, and also you could get caught by some random podcaster who connects some dots the police didn't. You know? You just never know anymore.
Or that, or someone in that hometown hears the podcast. That's in the town now, and it's like, oh my God, I heard that story from such and so, and they said they knew so and so, and dots can get connected. And there are some shows I think that have done a lot for cases. Shows like Serial and S-Town and stuff like that.
No doubt, no doubt. Like getting Adnan Syed like another trial.
Yeah,
like Serial did.
Right. I mean, that's a big deal, man. It's just getting the word out there, spreading awareness.
Yep.
Yeah. Man.
No doubt. All right, should we get into some Oh My Gaia?
Yes.
I just had to place an order with Wendy.
Oh, dude.
My wife's out of Sweet Pea. My wife is legitimately obsessed with Oh My Gaia. She's like, I don't know how you guys, like your one main sponsor is like such a great product that's so consistent.
Yeah.
And my wife raves about Oh My Gaia all the time.
Yeah, man. I also got to put in a new order. My wife's been asking me about that. So, Wendy, expect some orders to be put in here pretty soon. But If you guys don't know what we're talking about the greatest natural deodorant company that we have ever used and ever known.
In the world.
In the world. Let's just call it in the world, right?
Yes.
We're talking about Oh My Gaia. Oh My Gaia is an innovative, all-natural deodorant, fragrance, and beard oil company specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products. Their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while maintaining effectiveness. At Oh My Gaia, they use only all-natural, paraben, and aluminum-free organic ingredients. And like we alluded to, guys, there's tons of scents to choose from. Lauren was talking about his wife loves Sweet Pea. That's a great one. My wife she actually stole Sailor from me. So she's a big Sailor fan now. So now I no longer get to wear Sailor. But that's cool. I'm rocking Fireside today. But there's tons of scents to choose from, guys, from vanilla, cherry almond, sandalwood, lavender, lemongrass, Egyptian musk, coconut, dreamsicle, leather, lumberjack, honeysuckle, Fireside, barbershop. Barbershop is also a good one that we don't mention often.
Very clean.
And we have our own scent, our own True Crime Guy scent called True Crime Pine, which is also one of my favorites. It has our old podcast logo on the jar. It's very cool.
Yep.
I always keep at least one jar of True Crime Pine around.
That was part of my order. My wife got Sweet Pea, and I got a jar of TCP.
Nice.
Having just run out because I've been wearing that shit out.
That's right. You got to get some TCP, man. You got to get some of that stuff.
Yep.
And it's
sounds like a drug, but it is kind of a drug, really.
when you realize how good you smell,
addicting.
you might get addicted to it.
Right.
But it is unisex as well. I feel like anybody could pull this off, and as from a lot of these scents. But because you guys are True Crime Guys listeners, you can use the word creeper, CREEPER, and you can get 15% off your order at ohmygaia.com. That's OHMYGAIA.com or at shop_ohmygaia on Instagram. Guys,
Everybody else be doing 10% off with codes 15, baby.
15%.
A third more.
Let's
go.
You guys won't regret it. It's already
And it's already cheap.
I was about to
as
say,
it
it's
is,
already
so you
a
really
great
can't
price.
beat that.
It's already a great price.
Yep.
So,
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody who has taken the time to go and rate and review the show on iTunes and whatnot over the last few weeks. Last week, we obviously did a Patreon real quick, patreon.com/truecrimeguys.
Yes.
We'll talk more about that in a minute. But everybody in the last couple of weeks that has gone and done that, I want to say what's up to Wally in Australia, who rated it 5 stars. Said, awesome pod, guys. The best out there. I've listened to them all, mate. Yeah,
Nice.
down under. All right.
appreciate yeah.
We love our Aussies.
That's right.
Also, Alay 2370 nailed it.
Yep.
In the U.S. said good mix of humor and true crime, 5 stars. True Crime Kate in the U.S. said so awesome, 5 stars. Thank you. Fat Landon in the U.S.
Word.
Thank you. Said they're great. They're great. Lead Betty in the U.S. said yay, 5 stars. Jay Harris, 1971 in the U.S. said great, 5 stars. JLM Construction. Hey, I like it. You're trying to get a little advertising for your company in there too.
That works.
And then you only give us 5 stars, you bastard.
Wait, 5?
Or you only give us 4.
Oh.
Sorry, you only give us 4. How about your construction company's only a 4-star company?
Yeah. I'm going to leave a review on Google right now.
No, we are. Well, I've said it before. We are like a 4-star podcast.
Yeah,
I don't know why people rate us 5 stars. But JLM Construction said, love the off-topic conversation, 4 stars. Alaskan Lady 24 said, awesome podcast. Love the stories you choose and how you two share the storytelling.
Awesome.
Thank you. Rock or Roach 7462 in the U.S. said great personalities, 5 stars. Laura Down Under in Australia, best in the business.
Nice.
These guys are good. Everything I love about true crime plus hilarious banter to back it up. Michael is super talented. I don't know. Is that more British or Australian? I can't quite tell.
I don't know. I still like the comment
It
anyways.
was like a blend. It was a blend.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a
But thank you, Laura. Laura Down Under.
Yes, very much.
Ray says via Apple Podcast, United States of America, 5 stars. Thanks, guys. A bunch of fire emojis. Thank you, Ray. MZ Laughter,
Okay.
in the U.S. said great work, 5 stars. Anthony Stephen T. in the U.S. said great pod, 5 stars. And Penny Reeves in Australia Down Under. A lot of the Australians showing out lately.
Hell yeah, guys. Thank you.
Said this is a great new podcast. We're not new, bro. We've been doing this for 4 years.
Yeah.
But appreciate
But we
it.
appreciate it. Hey, we're established, actually. That's what we like to
Yeah,
call
just because you've just found us, Penny Reeves, he said, actually, after searching for ages, I finally stumbled across you guys. I love your podcast. Thank you so much. Great job with the intro and outro, Penny.
it. Yeah, we're terrible
So,
at
Penny,
advertising.
Just because you just found us doesn't mean we're new, but we're glad you found us finally.
Very much so.
and keep creeping down under down in Australian, mates.
Exactly. And if we're not new to you and you've listened to everything and you guys just listened to this brand new episode, now you're all caught up, we have another show that you guys can check out called Strange and Unexplained. You can find that anywhere you listen, on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, all that good stuff. Strange and Unexplained, guys. It's a different look at some unsolved and missing persons cases, and some are just strange cases. We have one episode that's about eugenics. It's a different format than True Crime Guys, but it gives us a little more flexibility in different types of cases and gives us a way to express our creativity in another way. It's another addition to True Crime Guys Productions. So
it has a different vibe, but it's still got that True Crime Guys stamp, and it is still a True Crime Guys production.
That's right. That's right.
You couldn't hear that, Michael, but I put some echo on that for you.
Oh, did you?
You'll like it when you listen back.
Oh, nice. Dude, you might have to record that for me.
I know,
right? On a regular basis.
You can put it at the beginning of every TCG episode and Strange and Unexplained.
Yeah, that would be dope. We need to get us a TCG Productions logo put together.
For sure.
We might work on that.
You're the logo master. You work on that. Let me know.
Okay, sounds good, dude. But yeah, guys.
I try to make logos like Michael does, and I just don't have the knack for it. This guy's got the creative gene. I don't know.
Hey, dude, we're a team. We work together. Yeah. We both have strengths and weaknesses that level things out.
I was a born host. I came out with a microphone and throwing it to other people. Like, hey, what do you think about this? Michael came out creating logos and music.
Yeah, that's fine.
Came out with a guitar.
It's all good, man. That's how we work.
Yep.
That's how we work. It works for us. But yeah, guys. Strange and Unexplained. At Sandu Podcast, at S&U Podcast on all social media, and then at True Crime Guys on all social media. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You guys can hit us up on there. If you have case suggestions for either show, please let us know. Leave a review for the shows, guys. We really appreciate that. It helps a lot. And if you need more content, you can always subscribe to Patreon for both shows. Patreon.com/True Crime Guys and Patreon.com/Sandu Podcast, S&U Podcast.
Yeah, check out both podcasts' Patreon pages, patreon.com/True Crime Guys. Last week we did Bryce LaSpiza. If you didn't hear a free episode last week, is because it wasn't because we didn't record.
Right.
We recorded an exclusive episode for patrons only. $2 a month gets you access to that, as well as a ton of other recordings and stuff. And check out S&U Patreon, patreon.com/S&U Podcast, right?
Yes, and there's some what I call strange shorts, some shorter episodes, but it's funny to me because I record them and they end up being like 30 minutes, so I don't really know how much shorter they are than the regular episodes are like. The regular episodes are like 40 to 45, so
right.
Take it for what it is. It's basically another episode. But you got strange shorts. I also have the Palate Cleanser podcast. I got 2 installments of that where it's just it's usually 20 to 30 minutes, and it's just different segments to kind of take your mind off of the influx of true crime and things that are going on. Kind of helps you to reset a little bit. Maybe laugh, maybe learn something,
maybe cry.
Who knows? But yeah, there's tons of extra content, and there's so many premium episodes on True Crime Guys that I forgot about them. There's so much content out there, guys, on Patreon. Patreon is our number one way that we support our podcast. So we put the most of our energy and our resources into those Patreon pages. So.
Very true. Most of the heavy hitter. If you want to hear our take on Bundy, I don't know if we've released a few of them over the years.
I think Bundy actually was released.
Okay. Well, there's all the heavy hitter serial killers. We have pretty much covered all of them on Patreon, and a lot of times they were 3-hour plus episodes because we really dove in with a couple of books and put a lot of effort into it. So yeah. And there's just a lot of off-the-wall cases, too. A lot of random stuff that we've done on Patreon. So, yeah, if you got $2 for to spare in the month, go check all that stuff out if you want more of our silliness. So
absolutely.
Yeah, and guys, we'll just end it with saying be safe out there. If you're out there marching, be safe. If you're a police officer right now, be safe. We want everyone going home to their families, and that's it, man. We'll see you guys next week.
Yep.
Keep creeping.
Keep creeping, guys.
Crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you. Sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army. We out here making murder, get murder, get murder. True Crime guys. guys. In the desert, we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us, cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you. Sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army. We out here making murder charming.